Welcome to the Radiant Mission Podcast. My name is Rebecca Twomey, and I am here with my awesome co-host and sister, Rachel Smith.
Hey guys.
We are on a mission to encourage and inspire you as you're navigating through this life and in your relationship with Christ. And today we are joined once again by the fantastic Dr. Vaughn to continue our health series. Welcome, Dr. Vaughn.
Hello, thank you.
And a quick reminder, if you are just joining for the first time, you got to listen back because he has been on here for 5 episodes now. So definitely go back and listen to more about his story and what's going on over here at Spirit of Health. Dr. Vaughn Lawrence is a traditional naturopath and iridologist. He's focused on helping people discover the root cause of their chronic illness. So with that said, if you want to connect with him after this podcast, because you're going to want to, you can find him at spiritofhealthkc.com. You can also visit his store for a lot of the items that are going to help you clear up your problems at store.spiritofhealthkc.com. You can find him on Facebook at facebook.com/spiritofhealth and on Instagram and YouTube at Spirit of Health KC. So we are so excited to have Dr. Vaughn back again. And this time we are going to be talking about women's health. Since the majority of the listeners now, because we've scared all the men away by talking about birth too much, we figure let's talk about women's health. It's a big topic.
Maybe we should do an episode of men's health one day.
Bring the men back.
Yeah. Rebecca and we joke because originally our heart for this podcast was for mothers, and we started our podcast talking about spiritual warfare, and we have had a lot of wonderful male listeners say, like, you guys keep saying that this podcast is for women, but I'm recommending it to all kinds of different men in my life. And we're like, oh, that's great. And then once we started talking about birth stories and breastfeeding, we lost a lot of men.
They all ran away, including our own dad, Dr. Vaughn. He said that our episodes were gross and he stopped listening. But he's come back now. He circled back around.
Variety.
He actually texted me today, Rachel, that he really enjoyed the Passover episode.
Okay.
And he said he enjoys us when we're not talking about, quote, gross things, and that we are a lot of fun when we're not doing that. So hopefully dad is back listening.
Yeah. And maybe we'll give you a men's health episode one day.
Although he's probably not listening to this episode because it's titled Women's Health. So anyway,
yeah.
In our circles, we hear many stories. I mean, Rachel and I are talking to women every day about the things that I'm going to mention now. People that have really heavy periods, women that have endometriosis or PCOS or are experiencing infertility. It seems that women are in a battle sometimes when it comes to our health. And obviously, I can imagine that some of this is stemming from what we talked about last time with immune health, that there could be issues with the gut. There also could be issues with other chronic illnesses, especially I know in Rachel's case with secondary infertility, she had other stuff going on. But I'd like to start kind of by bringing it back to the earliest possible place. And that's when we start our periods. We're teenagers, obviously young or even pre-teenager. And it comes before you're ever going to have, quote, endometriosis or PCOS or infertility because you're like 11 years old. But I wish that I could go back in time to tell myself that having a period is normal. First of all, I wish I could have read that book, Taking Charge of Your Fertility, when I was 12, so that I understood what I was going through was actually normal. Because I think that our society has made it not normal to bleed, which it is, to have periods. And their solution to heavy bleeding is often just put them on birth control. That's going to fix the problem. You know, that's going to fix everything. But really, all it does is cause a slew of other issues. So just knowing that, you know, the period was new as a young girl, it's hard to get through. I also wish I could have told myself to take some evening primrose oil. That probably could have helped too, but I'm not giving medical advice. Dr. Vaughn, I really want to start with you by asking, is this something that you run into often with women? I'm assuming, grown women at this point, heavy periods or reports of endometriosis or anything like that. Is that something that you see often?
Yeah, all the above, all the time. I mean, I work mainly with women, kind of like you said. Men will come in if they're dying or if their wife forces them to. I sometimes jokingly ask that question, like, "Did your wife make you come here?" Yeah. So I literally, like, this is just funny that we're talking about this right now. I did a consultation with a man. Our initial consultations are an hour and a half. He had a few questions. He got his questions answered. In 30 minutes, he was done. I was like, "Do you want to talk about anything else? We have another hour." He's like, "No, I'm good."
He's like, I don't even want the time. Just, we're good.
Bottom line, get to the point. What do I do? So anyway,
Yeah.
I work with a lot of women. So, if you work with a lot of women, of course, you're going to deal with menstrual cycles. It's just, it's an important part of being a woman. It's part of how God designed women. It's actually I've always said I love working with women. And when they have irregular cycles or issues with their menstrual cycle, it's actually a great gauge. It's a great indicator to see where women are in their health. And I have lots of stories. One story was a young gal, just, horrifically painful periods. And then she went a couple of months. And I remember she telling me that her menstrual cycle started and she didn't even know it until it started, which if you're a woman that's ever had menstrual cycle issues, that's like a life-changing event.
Mm-hmm.
Because usually you're debilitated, chronic pain, emotional mess for days, before you even start to bleed. And I remember she said she called her parents and told her, and literally her parents would not believe her because she just had like chronic pain every cycle for like her whole life.
Wow.
So, yeah, absolutely. Women can improve their menstrual cycles. And it's important because that's a sign of health, because God designed women for this specific purpose. And especially young women that are having problems with their cycle, it's a big deal because not only is it important to your health, but it's like, if you're going to have a future and you're going to have kids and a family, like you want to get your cycle right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, cool story. My wife, so when we met, so we just, we're 10 years in May. So this May, actually next month will be 11 years that we've been married.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And when we met, she had not had a menstrual cycle in 2 years.
Wow.
Didn't know if she'd ever have kids. Was diagnosed with Hashimoto's.
Wow.
And, we have 3 kids that are 10, 8, and 6. She's had a regular menstrual cycle for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just love that. I love seeing women regain their cycle when they haven't had one, or if they're having pain or irregular cycles, to improve it. And it's just, yeah, I actually find it a very fulfilling, I don't know if that's the right word. What's the word? Anyway, I think it's a fulfilling thing to see, women regulate in that area, because
Of course. That's super
it's so
cool.
important for like the future of humanity, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
matters.
I
It's
mean,
rewarding. That was the word. It's rewarding.
Yeah.
of course, the Lord designed us specifically this way, right? Like this is part of how women were designed to go through this cycle. And I don't think that we're supposed to experience it in excruciating pain all of the time.
Not at all.
So what are some of the solutions or remedies or, things that women can do to reduce these problems? Or is it just very different depending on a woman's situation?
Yeah, it depends, because it's definitely, there's a lot going on. It's complicated oftentimes. I love telling stories. Testimonials are so powerful. I gotta tell one more story. Sorry. Gal came to work for us, and her name was Hannah. I won't say her last name, but Hannah was like, I really want to come work for you guys. And she'd been married 5 years, never been pregnant once in 5 years of marriage.
Mm.
And I said, Hannah, because we knew her, she was a friend. We'd be like, you can come work for us, but you're going to get better. You're going to get pregnant. You're going to have kids and you're going to leave us. And I think I can say this because it was true. Like, we had more faith than she did because she hadn't been pregnant in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So she comes to work for us, horrible menstrual cramps. Like, she would miss work because her menstrual cramps were so bad.
Mm.
So worked on her health, did some cleansing. I specifically remember her during our lymphatic system cleanse, because the lymphatic system is not often looked at in health, but it's crucial because that is the main sewer system of the body that dumps all the toxins and poisons out. And it's where stagnation occurs. So if you have stagnation in your lymphatic system, you're going to have problems. So she was doing our lymphatic system cleanse. It's a 21-day cleanse. She's like, I just felt like the Lord say I should do it longer because I'm doing really good on it and I feel really good and I'm not having any cramps. And so she extended the lymphatic cleanse and then found out during the cleanse that she was pregnant.
Wow.
And so now her and her husband have 2 kids, a third on the way. And, so that was like a few years ago.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have so many of those kinds of stories,
Yeah.
So I think diet's huge. I really, really think diet's huge. I have seen so many women regulate their menstrual cycles with a change of diet. If you eat heavy diet and you eat lots of, fried foods, fatty foods, sugar, starches, carbs, kind of like the last episode, we were talking about fermentation of the gut. If you live that kind of a lifestyle, eventually that's going to cause stagnation. Mm-hmm. And when you have stagnation, that's when you start to have irregular tissue growth, abnormal estrogen. Mm-hmm. Stress is a big one because it suppresses, cortisol suppresses progesterone. So you kind of got this cascade of things happening when you're not eating well and you're stressed out, and that's going to cause hormonal problems. So I usually start with diet, and diet's a whole super confusing thing, right? Yeah. But the basics of it is this is just my 2 minutes on diet because it's a big topic, right? But I'm of the belief of 80% fruits and veggies. So veggies, number 1, fruits, a close number 2, but it also depends on the season. Like summer, you should be eating more fruit. If you live in a tropical place, I believe in seasonal eating, but let's say 80% fruits and veggies, and then 20%, fats and protein. And you should be eating very minimal amounts of sugar, starches, carbs, obviously no fatty oils, the trans fats, the seed oils, all the bad stuff we know of. But if a woman has an irregular cycle, a heavy cycle, and she just starts eating lots of salads and, keeps it light, eat 3 meals a day, maybe kind of stop all the snacking, literally that alone will take stress and burden off of the system, and they'll start having a regular cycle again. It can be that simple. So I've seen that a lot. I've seen
quit
the diet
eating
change.
those sweet treats, huh?
Yeah, they're the emotional comfort foods. They feel good in the moment, and I understand that it's hard, but it will keep you from reaching your goals. Absolutely.
Yeah. Rachel has this really fun story about when she was experiencing her infertility issues and I'm just going to throw Rachel under the bus a little bit and say, I told her to stop drinking wine, but when her friend, who's a dietitian, told her, or was it, I don't know if it was Paula or your other doctor.
It was Paula. Yeah. Cause she was the first one who started helping me, and she's a functional nutritionist.
And she said, Rachel, the first thing you need to do is.
So she said the low hanging fruit.
The low hanging fruit. And the one she was drinking was called low hanging fruit.
Yeah. Yeah. So she literally, it was like one of those cool God moments.
It was such a prophetic moment, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was the first conversation we were having about my hormonal issues that were, revealed to me because I couldn't get pregnant, and I got pregnant easily in the past.
Yeah.
And so she's a wonderful dietitian. And she was like, the first thing that I would say, the low hanging fruit, is to cut out alcohol and wine, because she knew that I like drinking wine.
Right.
And when she said that, I'm like, Paula, my favorite wine, the brand is literally called Low Hanging Fruit.
Like,
So,
okay, Lord.
Yeah. But I will say, like, what you're saying, like, it just resonates with me and my testimony so much too, that it was a long journey for me. But what you're saying about diet, I mean, it healed a lot of my body. And I ended up doing the paleo autoimmune protocol, which one thing I felt the Lord revealed to me early in the process, which the AIP diet is supposed to be limited time. Like, it's not like for life, because it's very restrictive initially until you introduce, possible inflammatory, it's different
Meaning
for
she
everyone.
means she couldn't eat pepper.
Yeah. Like, it was literally take everything down to the bare bones, that all I was eating was vegetables, fruit, meat, and the only oils were coconut oil, avocado oil, and olive oil. So it took all
Basically what I just described.
exactly.
Exactly.
It was what you
Yeah.
just described.
Yeah.
There were a little bit more extremes, like no pepper and nightshades and
Right.
and things that took a lot more effort. But one thing I really realized that the Lord revealed to me early on is that this is the way that God created our bodies to function.
Right.
That if you think back thousands of years ago, we didn't have all this junk, processed foods and seed oils and refined sugar and all of these things that we do today. And they are what is contributing to our body's decay. So to really get back to the, factory model settings is to eat like we were. That's one of the reasons it's called the paleo diet, I guess.
Right.
So and just like the testimony you shared of your friend who came to work for you, after 3 months of me doing this protocol, which also entailed a very, very intensive, I mentioned it last time, herbal supplement protocol, I got my blood work back from my MP, and she told me that my estrogen was better. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. My Epstein-Barr was in remission. The Lyme disease was completely gone. I started hysterically crying when she gave me this news, because it was just so revealing that what I did worked. And we got off the phone, and then I felt weird that I started crying, because that's not how I am. And I went and I took a pregnancy test. And for the first time in 2 years and hundreds of negative pregnancy tests, I had my first positive. And that was 3 months of changing my diet to what you're describing. So,
yes. Amen. That's awesome. I love hearing that. Yep.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
So a couple other, things, because I mentioned diet's important, and I think that's a good start, and that's huge. Hormones are regulated by light. So sunlight in your eyes every morning, walking, being outside, that actually starts the cascade of hormone production. You want to talk about luteinizing hormone and all these important hormones you need. They're all stimulated by light. So if sunlight stimulates hormone production and is crucial for fertility, what do you think has the opposite damaging effect?
Not having light.
Artificial light.
Blue light.
Yeah, there you go.
Cell phones, laptops, lights inside buildings, those all do the opposite. They suppress hormone function. So light's a big one. There's a product I like that I've used for years, very successful. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Maca Harmony by NHI, but it's a maca-based product. They have one for women for normalizing their cycle, or if they're not having a cycle. And then they have one called Maca Life that's for women going through menopause, and then they have one called Maca Pause. It's like for postmenopause, and they're amazing. I had a friend of mine who couldn't get pregnant, and she changed her diet, got on the Maca Harmony, and got pregnant pretty quickly. So there's good products out there. The one my wife took that I still use from time to time, it's called Restore, and it's by Herbally Grounded, and you take 4 capsules before bed. And my wife now, at that time, we weren't even dating. Like, she was actually a patient of mine. I know, big taboo, right? But she wasn't having a menstrual cycle. So I said, hey, take this Restore 4 at night before bed. And she started having a menstrual cycle and had one ever since, just taking one herbal formula.
Wow.
That's great.
And she changed her diet too, because she was diagnosed Hashimoto. So we got away from the gluten and, did some diet changes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think there's herbal support's huge. Those are a couple products I really like. Yeah, I want to mention the light. And then, yeah, I'm very thankful. And I know you did this too, but the Dutch test, I do think the Dutch test is phenomenal for checking steroid hormones. Is a woman estrogen dominant? Is she deficient in progesterone? Because progesterone deficiency is a big reason women have irregular cycles, heavy periods, infertility. Their progesterone is low for a number of reasons. Why? Diet,
Mhm.
okay, because insulin will negatively impact progesterone. Stress, because cortisol will suppress progesterone. So there's a lot of things happening in our world today with our diet and our stress that is suppressing progesterone. And then obviously we all kind of know about estrogen dominance and all the things that can cause that, xenoestrogens, and that have this estrogen mimicking effect. And I lab test for all that stuff. Like what I think I had 2. Well, yesterday I had one, today I had one, where women are hormone, fertility kind of is their focus. And they were both really high in BPA. And one of them was over 3 times the toxic level of BPA. And,
Wow.
I can't know for sure, but I'm always looking for causation. So, do you have a xenoestrogen or some estrogen mimicking compound in your body that can be causing 2 things? One, estrogen dominance, but also, causing a progesterone deficiency. Bad combo.
Interesting. So do you cleanse that out? I mean, obviously changing the diet is going to be something that you do, and getting sunlight. Do you also recommend a cleanse for something like that when someone has BPA in their system? Can you cleanse out BPA?
Yeah, BPA can be cleansed. Glyphosate, I'm seeing a lot. That is a bad guy for fertility. Mold is a big one, because these are all endocrine disruptors.
Mm-hmm.
So they negatively damage the endocrine system. It's well known in the farming community to check your animals for mold if they're not having babies, because it will suppress fertility. And so they put things in the feed to kill the mold, and then they'll start having babies again.
Interesting.
So yeah, you mainly sweat them out. I'm a huge fan of far infrared sauna. I think it should be far infrared. The one we use is called a Therasage. I don't know if you've heard of Therasage, but there's all these big box saunas and all these different companies that sell these big saunas. The Therasage one, I recommend to all of my patients, because better technology, it's way cheaper. It's like $1,100. You have it in your home, you zip it up, your head's out. So like, I start every morning with the sauna and hot cold therapy. So like, I'll do sauna in the morning, sweat, and then hop in a cold bath. So that kind of therapy is really powerful. But for detoxing any kind of chemical, we'll call them environmental toxin, the herbicides, the pesticides, the BPA, the plasticizers, the glyphosate, all that stuff, sweating them out is the best. So if you can sweat and take the right binder, it's really that simple. You can detox this stuff out of your body, and then that'll start to correct your natural, hormone function, estrogen function, and all that.
We talked about binders a little bit last episode. So you're referring to something like clay, using clay as a binder, or no?
Nope.
Something.
Nope. Yeah,
different?
I don't use clay or charcoal. Those are the traditional binders, and I use those for years. I'm sure,
but those are more for stomach, like we talked about. So for heavy metals, you would use a different binder.
used for allergies. They can be for different things, but yeah, I don't really use them for other things.
Okay.
I'm guessing, have you run across Cellcore Biosciences?
Mm-mm.
Okay. They're a pretty big deal in natural health, but they have the absolute best binders on the market, period, hands down. Biotoxin binder binds mold, and parasite toxins. HMET binder, heavy metal environmental toxins, binds glyphosate, proven. Had a gal whose glyphosate was 12 and 6 months sauna and take an HMET binder. Next time I tested her, it was 1.9.
Wow.
So
Interesting.
yeah, you can detox these things out of the body. Virad Chem binder works for viruses, radiation. So I use that one for uranium. So different. So a binder is a carbon. So activated charcoal is a carbon, but it's a spent carbon.
Mm.
And so you can take, you probably might maybe heard of humic and fulvic minerals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, these are carbons and they're binders, but they're specific. They specifically bind specific toxins.
Okay.
And they don't interfere with your good, minerals and vitamins. They don't bind the things that you're supposed to have. You can actually take them with food and it doesn't interfere with anything.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I love taking the right binder. So sweating and taking the right binder. And then I'll mention one more thing, just because I'm a huge fan, is the ion detox foot baths really, really work. And we just got in a new one because I'm always researching, always looking for the best thing. Got one, mind blowing. They have a patent on it because toxins, it was believed, are all positively charged. So you need negative ions. If you've heard of negative ionization, you need negative ions to grab the positively charged molecules and pull them out. Well, it turns out that many toxins are negatively charged. And there's even a term called gram-negative bacteria. And so because some toxins are negatively charged, you actually need to ionize them with positive ions. And so I can actually adjust my foot bath to detox out exactly what a person has in their body. So if they have glyphosate, which is negatively charged, I can pull it out with positive ions. Endotoxins, which are the Lyme toxins, are actually also all gram-negative, and they need positive ionization. So anyway, there's all kinds of like really cool tools out there. I guess my point is that find out what toxins you have in your body causing hormone disruption, and help them come out with foot baths, sweat therapy it's got to be far infrared, not just like a steam sauna, and then the right binder. That would be kind of the general overview.
What kind of tests would you perform to find out what kind of issues? We talked about the Dutch test, but Dutch doesn't tell you you probably have different kinds of tests for this.
Yeah, Dutch is just steroid hormones. So yeah, we do blood, we do urine, we do hair. It depends on what it is.
And it'll tell you all that
Yep,
stuff.
I think hair is the most accurate for metals and radioactive elements, but we also check urine metals too, and I compare. But urine will check your mold, all your molds. Urine will check all your environmental toxins. There's a test we do that checks over 170 environmental toxins, one urine sample. Actually, one urine sample, you can check all your molds, all your environmental toxins, your heavy metals, your radioactive elements, whole bunch of stuff. It's really cool.
Very interesting. I have 3 questions that are stemming from this. One of them is a silly one. Okay. Have you seen how people will take a slice of a potato and put it on the bottom of their feet and then put socks on before they go to bed to pull out toxins? Have you heard of this?
Heard of it. I don't know much about it. Haven't really.
Well, that was going to be my question is it actually doing anything?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think
that was
that's
just a fun
like
one.
Old, like 100-year-old
old wives' tale.
Yeah.
If you're
I mean,
sick,
I don't know. Maybe it works.
It's more of if you have a cold or something, they'll say, take the potatoes, put it on the bottom of your kid's feet, put socks on them. I
thought it was onion or garlic. I don't know.
Yeah.
Look up the potato thing. It's a whole thing. Let me know what you come up with. My other question is, how do you feel about TRS spray? I know that's a pretty common one that people would use for heavy metals. Do you use that too?
Don't use TRS. I talked to
or whatever
moms.
that's called.
Yeah,
I
it's
guess
a
TRS
zeolite.
is a brand, isn't it?
It's a zeolite.
Yes. There you go.
Yep.
A zeolite
Yep.
spray.
So zeolite spray. Yep.
So it's
So
not just fancy water.
no, it's not. It really works. And I'm not, I'm just gonna be honest. I'm never gonna bash another company. I think there's a lot of people doing a lot of great things out there. I have heard nothing but positive things from TRS. I work with a lot of moms and I've seen it help a lot of children.
Mm.
So I'm all about it. I'm like, great, rock the TRS. That's awesome. Now, if your kid has a lot of serious metal or radioactive element issues, they can have a negative response, or you might have to go really slow. But it works. It's a zeolite. I use a different one. It's called Vitality Detox Drops, and it's very similar. It's a
Okay.
zeolite. What it
Okay.
is, it's a zeolite.
Well, I'm adding all this stuff to the show notes. I will be emailing you if I have questions about if I didn't type it correctly. So if you're listening, check the show notes. Well, I'll have some links to Dr. Vaughn's store and some of the other resources that he mentioned here.
Yeah.
Now, I did want to circle back to PCOS. Now,
Good.
it is a diagnosis of sorts
Right.
that people receive, whether, that is what the we don't have to get into the actual details of what it is necessarily, all the ins and outs of it, unless you want to, but it's something that I personally have many friends who have trouble conceiving and have issues. And they say, my doctor told me I have PCOS. That's why I'm not getting my periods. The protocol that you just shared to me sounded like it would solve this issue for many of these women. I know diet is a big thing. I have a good friend who told me, like, I got my period back I stopped eating sugar. I stopped eating a lot of processed foods and being healthier about my food choices. And I was able to regulate my periods again. But I'm just curious if you run into this specific, the specific thing with women.
Yeah. Yep. Super common, unfortunately. So yeah, lot with that the whole estrogen thing. You definitely good to get checked out, see if you're estrogen dominant, see if that plays a role. If you look at PCOS, there's all kinds of different reasons. There's different actually types of PCOS.
Okay, interesting.
Depending on the cause. It's not all the same thing. I did a whole class on my YouTube channel called cyst tumors and fibroids, I think it's called. And it was more of an explanation of why these things occur. Because a cyst or a tumor or a fibroid is an abnormal growth. So why does the body get an abnormal growth? So the body gets an abnormal growth because there's a toxicity, because there's a problem. A lot of research shows parasites are a common cause. Any kind of toxin, metals, mold, all these things can cause an abnormal growth in the body, but that's what a cyst is. It's an abnormal growth. So I would definitely say 100% get off of any birth control. People think IUDs are better. I have heard IUD nightmares for many of my patients. Copper toxicity will destroy a woman's hormones. So I've seen super copper toxic women from taking IUDs. They are devastating. I don't care what any doctor says. It's not safe. It's complete medical.
I agree with you and can relate. I had a copper IUD and developed copper toxicity myself.
There you go. I didn't even know that. So, so I just wanted to be clear on that I think that's important to get off of those things. So with ovarian cysts, so I mentioned, the estrogen, doing a Dutch test, getting rid of birth control and IUDs. I want to touch on something that I think we talked about diet, but I want to touch on something that I think is really cool. You can look at this with PCOS or endometriosis, but I think this is not talked about a lot. And I want to talk about it just because I want to see people get better. And, that's kind of my heart. Actually, my heart and, target market in the business world, but like my heart is moms love the Lord, any mom, even if they don't love the Lord, of course, but it's like, I want moms to be well because I believe they're so crucial to the foundational family support network of our world. And they often get, overlooked, and, they're doing all these things and they're not seen, and they're trying to raise their kids and they're trying to raise their husbands. And no, that was a joke. Just,
It's true though.
they,
It's true.
they're so exhausted, and like, who's watching out for them? Who's taking care of the moms? Because the husband's often working, he's making a living, and mom is just getting whooped. So I really have a heart to see moms get well. That's really my passion. So I think it's important to talk about the importance of cleansing the vaginal area. And I've had women do so many different things over the years, that you can insert probiotics into the vagina before bed. There's these little pearls that you can use. Women will do garlic cloves. There's different things you can use as a douche. A couple of things that really, really work that I just really want to highlight. Crazy story of a girl in her 20s having horrific endometriosis, multiple surgeries, didn't get better, completely healed it with ozone therapy, doing ozone vaginally.
Interesting. How
So
do you do
can
that?
do, yeah, right. You need equipment. So so ozone, very, very powerful because oxygen heals everything. So breath of life, if you want to get back to the foundational, like Genesis 2:7, the Lord formed man out of the dust of the earth and breathed in him the breath of life. So oxygen is the most important element in our world. And so you can heal a lot of things with oxygen. So ozone therapy vaginally can remove, like, it can heal ovarian cysts, it can reverse endometriosis. So that's something you can look into. We have ozone machines and ozone bubblers, and I could tell all kinds of fun ozone stories. I injected my wife's tonsils with ozone one time, and she spit up tonsil stones. So yeah, cool stuff.
Ooh,
but ozone therapy is
that
cool.
sounds like that must have been felt very relieving for her.
Oh yeah, she's got a lot of lymph stuff going on.
Okay.
So here's something that anyone can do. It's super easy. That's super common in Asian culture.
Oh, are you going to talk about steaming?
Yes, yoni steam. Come on.
I was wondering if you're going to go to the yoni steam.
It works. It works. It
So what
works.
is that?
So basically, you sit on. You can buy something like on Amazon or whatever. That it's basically like sitting on a toilet seat without the toilet. So like you're sitting on a toilet seat, and underneath you have just a pot of boiling water, or better, you would add herbs into it. So we have two formulas, and I'll tell you what those are. And we even have a document we can send people on how to do a yoni steam bath. But we have a tea called a healing sitz bath. And if you research like yoni steam and what women are using to help with cysts and these kind of different issues, or just any kind of vaginal infection, anything like that, it's all in that healing sitz bath tea. And then we have another one called healing tea. And the healing tea is very heavy in microbial herbs, so antimicrobial herbs, like black walnut and different things. So I would look into doing a yoni steam, and it's just basically a pot of boiling water. You add the herbs into it, you sit on the thing, and you just let the steam and the herbs basically cleanse that whole area. And it's phenomenal. I mean, you can shockingly reverse so many conditions that seem so scary and seem so complicated with heat and cold, with steam therapy, hot therapy, sauna therapy, cold plunges, cold baths. There's whole books written on this stuff, but it's like, it's kind of like it's been lost. So I really wanted to highlight the yoni steam because any woman can do that.
Yeah.
And successfully cleanse and heal anything going on in that area. You think of doctors doing these pap smears and scaring the bejeebies out of women's, like, you have HPV and all this fear-based stuff, and they want them to do a DNC and all these like horrific procedures that are completely unnecessary. And just really what we need to do is just some basic like healthcare maintenance of the vaginal area, because it's important.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, Rachel, I'll have to send you some videos because I've come across this often in the more crunchy communities, and there are people that rent out devices for you to do it in a specific way. So anyway, we could talk more about that. I have a question for you. This is kind of a big one, but since we're talking about endometriosis, if a woman has her uterus, her tubes, her whole system removed, whatever it might be, parts or pieces of it removed,
Mhm.
is it going to solve the problem? Or could there potentially still be another underlying problem that may manifest in a different way now that those parts are not there?
It just depends on where it grew. Because the definition of endometriosis is endometrial tissue that's growing outside of the uterine cavity.
Okay.
So that abnormal tissue that's growing outside of the uterus can grow in multiple different areas. For some reason, for some women, it's in a lot of different places.
Okay.
So it's kind of like, does gallbladder surgery solve the problem? No, if you talk to people who've had gallbladder surgery, they'll all tell you that like 90% of them still have gut issues, digestive issues, liver issues, bile flow issues, diarrhea, constipation. So medical system, of course, they're trying to, do their best to solve a crisis. And it certainly is going to help. It is unfortunate that the only solution they offer is surgery. And even to find out if a woman has endometriosis, right, they have to do exploratory surgery, like just to even see if they have endometriosis.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you can go in there and you can cut away a lot of the endometrial tissue, but you and I both well know that there's an underlying cause. What's the root cause? Just removing the abnormal tissue growth does not discover or help solve the root problem of why it's even growing abnormally in the first place. So yes, it'll provide relief. It will buy you some time, but it doesn't solve the underlying problem.
That's good to know. Very, very, very good to know. I'm sorry, Rachel. I think I cut you off. You had a question as well.
Oh, no, I didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
No, I was just absorbing that all.
Yeah, definitely. It's a big one. I mean, we talk about this again all the time in our communities. Women have, endometriosis issues. Rachel mentioned Paula before, who is her dietitian. She was on the podcast a while back, and that was what led her to become a dietitian. She was told she had endometriosis, and the only way to fix it was to have her uterus removed, was to have a hysterectomy, basically.
Yeah, in her 30s or 20s.
And
or
she
something.
said, there's got to be a better way. And that was when she went down the route of learning about how to eat right and how to take care of our bodies. And she healed her own endometriosis with food and supplements, herbs. So,
Yep. So yeah, endometriosis, I think one thing I just wanted to mention that we didn't talk about, but is important is liver.
okay.
And, it is the job of the liver. So estrogen is use it or lose it. So you use estrogen and then it's done. And then it has to be recycled, broken down, eliminated. That's the job of the liver. If you've heard of this whole process of methylation, which is pretty commonly talked about these days, you have to be methylating, and that's liver is a big part in the process of methylation. And so when women have these conditions, you definitely want to look at the liver because you need to help the liver get stuff out. And so this is like B vitamins, methylated B vitamins, SAMe, glutathione's probably the main one I use. No, actually sulfur is the main one I use. So sulfur is very crucially important. Every cell of the human body, crucial for liver function, liver detoxification, overall human health. I think sulfur is very overlooked. MSM is a cheap way to do it, methylsulfonylmethane, which is a sulfur. I use a broccoli extract. There's one I use called Brock Elite. That's what I normally recommend to women is the Brock Elite because it's a concentrated sulforaphane. and it's going to help with methylation. It's going to help with the liver detoxification to help get that bad estrogen out, or just help the liver to detox, properly. So it's another important element.
Is that one similar to DIM?
Yeah, well, DIM is, cruciferous vegetables, like broccoli and cauliflower and stuff like that. So yeah, it'd be a similar concept. It's just a different compound.
Okay.
It's the sulforaphane versus the whatever DIM stands for.
Yeah, I don't remember it either.
It's a long, crazy word.
Isn't sulfur what you use to topically cure ringworm? Or am I thinking of something else?
That's iodine.
Oh, no, lots of things. Ozone, iodine. You could use sulfur or garlic, oregano, all kinds of things. Ringworm's a fungus, so you can use all kinds of things. I use, I have Pure O3 has the best, know what the best ozonated oils are on the market. It's Pure O3. And anytime somebody has ringworm, cold sore, I mean, you name it. So my daughter, this is cool. She's 8 years old and she had skin tags. My wife has really bad skin tags and moles, right? So my daughter's getting these little skin tags and they're not in good places. They're on her eyebrow. They're on her top of her eyelid. Like if you look at her now, perfect skin and face, 0 skin tags.
Interesting. And this is a liquid, this Pure O3?
Every morning when she got up, I had her do the hemp. So Pure O3, they have all different ones, but we have 3. We have olive oil, ozonated hemp oil, and ozonated coconut oil. The ozonated hemp oil is the strongest concentration because hemp can house the highest concentration of ozone. So we had her put the ozonated hemp oil on those spots every day, and after a few days, they just fell off. I had a skin tag under my armpit, and I put it on there every day. It turned black. It fell off.
Wow. Oh, that's fascinating.
Super cool. I don't know how we went from women's hormone to talking about skin tag. Hey,
well, let me circle back. Happens. I want to circle back to progesterone for a second, because this is another one that comes up a lot, especially in pregnancy. A lot of women will take artificial progesterone or use progesterone cream or whatever it might be. Is there a way to naturally increase your progesterone levels if you have low progesterone?
I'm going to use, I use progesterone cream. There's natural ones, wild yam based, and I use progesterone creams for different reasons. So let's say a woman is progesterone deficient and she gets pregnant. She should take progesterone, because if you don't have progesterone, you can't build the uterine lining and you can't have you might have a complication in the pregnancy.
That's what happened to me this pregnancy I'm in, is that because I went into it still slightly estrogen dominant, my progesterone dropped down, and my midwife, she gave me a few weeks to try just wild yam root, but it was continuing to drop, and she's like, prescribe me progesterone for that same reason.
Good for her. So she knows what she's doing. That's important. So yeah, I'll recommend progesterone for that case. I'll recommend progesterone for postmenopausal women, because all of their postmenopausal symptoms are related to estrogen dominance, and they need to help their liver to get it out. But in the meantime, you give them progesterone and all their symptoms stop overnight.
Wow.
It's crazy. I've seen that happen so many times. So progesterone, blood sugar imbalances, nutrient deficiencies. So there's certain nutrients we need to have proper progesterone. And so getting enough protein is actually important for progesterone production. Stress.
Hey, Rachel's favorite thing to do.
Eat protein.
Oh my gosh, I have to eat so much protein this pregnancy.
So I'm just kind of giving you the main things for progesterone. Blood sugar balance, having estrogen dominance, that's going to affect it. Stress because of the cortisol, nutrient deficiencies because you're not eating enough to keep up with the metabolism, and then poor thyroid function. So those are all the things that can negatively impact progesterone.
Great. That's very helpful. Good. Very good to know. So get your protein in. Now, do you have anything else that we missed? Did we miss anything on women's health that we needed to address?
I had a note here about iron. A lot of women are anemic. You
Oh.
actually cannot detox estrogen out of your body without iron. So
Interesting.
you do not want to be anemic. That's a big
Okay.
deal
Okay.
for a lot of different reasons. So I'm like beef liver capsules all day long. If you ever even thinking about getting pregnant, like you should be on beef liver capsules, like long term, through your pregnancy, after your pregnancy. So I'm a big fan of that.
Okay.
So I think I wanted to mention that. I just had a couple of notes. I just wanted to see if there's any, but I don't know if
What
there's
do
anything
what
else.
do vegetarians do? What would a vegetarian do to get
You
enough
can get-
iron to
You
not
can
be
get
anemic?
herbal iron. Wish Garden has a tincture that's all just, it's probably, I mean, if you think of iron, you're thinking like yellow dock, dandelion, whatever the highest like herbal iron,
Okay.
whatever the highest herbal iron sources are, there's plant-based iron that you can do as well.
Okay.
But beef liver capsules, I think is the best.
Amen. I started taking beef liver my last pregnancy, and I have taken it ever since. I'm a huge fan. Yeah, I agree.
Easier than eating.
Way easier than eating.
It really is. And for me, this pregnancy with the nausea, just choking down the beef liver capsule pills, oh, it would make me gag, but I would get it
Yeah,
in.
imagine if you had to eat it.
No.
Hey, quick story. Do we have 1 minute?
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting. I've actually heard doctors tell women that if you don't have nausea during pregnancy, there's something wrong. So quick story. My wife, first pregnancy, a lot of nausea, actually had full body itching, which some cholestasis. She just had some liver stuff going on. So I actually boiled her down a decoction of yellow dock, and I was giving her like yellow dock decoctions, and we did a couple enemas to just kind of clear her liver while she was pregnant, just to help with her liver. But after she gave birth, we just honed in on her liver, and we did liver detox and just liver. And she got pregnant again about a year later. And that pregnancy, oh my goodness, like she had 0 symptoms of pregnancy. She felt amazing, never once got nauseous. I'll never forget, she was 5.5 months pregnant, and she came to me and she's like, Vaughn, I know this might sound crazy, but do you think like possibly something's like wrong with the baby? Like she didn't even feel like she was pregnant.
Wow.
5.5 months in.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like, we actually called that child our miracle baby, because it was our middle child, and she was like the healthiest child, the best sleeper, on and on and on down the list. So I really think like that'd be a cool another episode to do, like what women can do to actually like heal their body and help their body before getting pregnant.
Yes.
It can make a monumental difference in the health of the child. And if we actually knew that, if we actually believed that, we actually were educated in it, how much we could impact like our future children from birth.
I would love to do an episode on that, because I'm at the end of my pregnancy now, but I worked so hard for my health going into this pregnancy. And like I had, mentioned that I found out I was pregnant the day that I got positive blood work results, but my body wasn't done healing yet. It was very quick off of this. It was healed enough to get pregnant, but the nausea I had at the beginning of this pregnancy was debilitating. Like I could not get out of bed for pretty much 2 months. And it was so much worse than my previous pregnancies. And I like taking all the minerals, doing like, I felt like I'm like so much healthier. But what you're saying, I think that I would love to do an episode on this, because that's so important for people planning. If there is anything we can do going into a pregnancy to have optimal health, because it's not only rough on us to be that sick, but like you said, to improve the health of our child long term in their life.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely, after this pregnancy, will be calling you myself for this liver cleanse, because I think that's kind of the haunting me, is my liver is not quite right.
Right.
And if I do have another pregnancy again one day, I can't go through that nausea again. Can't do it.
Yeah, I totally
But
resonate with your story too, with you and your wife's story, because I had nausea with both my first two, and then with my second was when I really learned about. I was going to a great chiropractic office that had a very natural minded family doctor, and well, I guess technically he's like functional medicine, whatever. And he said, "Let's get you on beef liver and B6." And that was everything was from animals. So all of it was, animal based products. And I was taking that, and I went from throwing up every 20 seconds to my nausea literally went away, except for first thing in the morning. If my stomach was empty or whatever, I would, feel a little nauseous. But then I continued to take beef liver after that pregnancy because of the benefits of it. And then preparing, because I knew we wanted, we didn't have a plan. We were following God's plan for children after our last child. We said, whatever happens, happens. And so I wanted to make sure that I was prepared. So I was continuing to take beef liver and B6. And when I got pregnant this time, I started to get a little bit of nausea, but I just upped my stuff, and I was great. And I have to tell you, I felt the best this pregnancy, my third. In all of them, I'm the oldest. I'm geriatric, but I feel great.
Amen.
Of all
That's
my
awesome.
pregnancies. And I kind of like your wife. Sometimes I don't feel like I'm pregnant when I'm sitting or whatever. Like I'll stand up and I'll be like, oh man, my stomach's kind of heavy, but I don't always feel like I'm pregnant. I haven't been fatigued or tired. Been able to just, live life. So I think
Hallelujah.
there is something to be said for something about that liver. But I still need to
That's
detox mine though.
Detox is key. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that story, and thank you for
welcome.
go ahead. You have another one, and you have another
Nope.
point.
I just said you're welcome.
Oh, thank you for being here with us. As always, we really appreciate it. If you're listening and you want to connect with Dr. Vaughn, be sure to visit his website, spiritofhealthkc.com. Visit the show notes because we'll have links to all this, and you can get to his store from there, his Facebook, his Instagram, and YouTube. And we thank you so much for tuning in and for being on this journey with us. If you'd like to follow along outside the podcast, join the mission on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube at The Radiant Mission. And if you're loving the show, we encourage you to share it with a friend. And today we are going to close with 1 Corinthians 15:10. I am what I am by God's grace, and God's grace hasn't been for nothing. In fact, I have worked harder than all the others. That is, it wasn't me, but the grace of God that is with me. We're wishing you a radiant week, and we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.